Hi friends, this is Kim from Creative DIY Purpose. Welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. Today I'll be sharing some upcycled and repurposed projects and a few vintage inspired thrifted finds. And thank you for those that left such kind and sweet messages on last week's video. If you liked today's video, please be sure to hit the thumbs up button. And come on, let's get started. Item number one is this sweet little bunny wall hanging. I picked him up for $1 or $2, and he's going to get a fresh new makeover for spring. I applied 2 coats of the DIY paint in vintage linen. Then I watered down some truffle paint by Waverly, the outside, just for some contrast, add something to them. And I wanted to share this with you guys. I bought this faux lavender from Amazon, and I am so happy with it. The price was phenomenal. I think there's 10 individual stocks, and I think that the color's really beautiful. And I know sometimes it's hard on there to tell, which products are good quality. And I'm going to actually link this one below for you guys. We're going to add a pop of color to them. Went on to canva.com and I just made these tags and printed them out on cardstock. And then I did one a little bit bigger than the lavender tag, but just with some carrots. I just thought that was kind of fun. Add those found a package of vintage seam binding that my mom had given me. And I just thought it'd be nice to add to this piece. Now I'm just going around the bottom. And I hot glued them pretty light so that if someone wanted to change out for the different seasons, they could easily. Bought this for $3.99 or $4.99, and I did it with 2 coats of the acrylic sealer, and then I applied 2 coats of vintage linen paint and tried to lightly distress. And I wanted this to have an aged look, but it just didn't look right over the woven part because it was actually woven with like a metal and like a wickers. So I applied the DIY paint in Apothecary, and I'm going over it with white wax. That's going to help too, so that where I distressed it, it's not such a contrast, and it'll give it a softer aged look. So it actually sat on there for a few hours, and then I just lightly wiped it back. And now on to the inside. So I did not paint the bottom or the top, but I did spray it twice with spray sealer so that that color wouldn't bleed through. I believe it's just on there with like thumbtacks, because every time I close it, it actually gets stuck on the outside of the box. And I'm just going to replace it with a lighter fabric lace. I believe that this is from cut off from a slip. I believe this is a vintage piece or pretty close to it. I think my mom used to cut them all off as you know, as they wore out, and she would keep the lace and she gave them to me. So I thought this was perfect. I just cut it to fit, went around the corners with some hot glue. And then for the bottom piece, I just had to go around with a seam ripper and cut the part where it had been attached to the fabric. And they fit in here nicely. I did some vintage lace for the side. And then I decided to add another different piece of vintage lace up at the top, just to try to complete the look of the inside. Our next thrifted item, I don't believe that it is vintage, but it definitely has that vintage vibe. Just a beautiful pattern on this vase, and I love the shape of it. There's no markings on the bottom, but I think this is just a really beautiful, simple piece. When I originally picked this piece up, I thought that it had the look of brass, but I believe that it is just silver plated, and it's just extremely beautifully tarnished. It is listed as a bread basket online, but I thought for the spring it held these farm fresh eggs in a display perfectly. And this next piece I don't believe is vintage, but I think that it's so beautiful. It is just a little ceramic canister that I believe probably held a candle at one time, just sweet and simple. And I absolutely love this mug. Look at how beautiful it is. And this one is a Dunnan, and they are made in England. And it says online they ship their products to over 60 countries. But I love how their mugs actually feature different artists. You can find them on eBay for roughly $50 to $30. Gave it a good sanding. It had a lot of layers on it. And then I sprayed it with 2 coats of Rust-Oleum chalk paint in the back in and sanded it 2 more times because of the raised areas. I just applied 2 coats of the DIY paint in vintage linen. I absolutely love this shade of white. I'm going to remove the perch because I'm going to use something else. On Canva.com and found this image of a clock face that I printed out on rice paper. I think it would look nice up at the top. So try to find the middle point. Just going to fold it a couple times and try to even it up as best as I can. Top edges so it fits in there snugly. I wanted to try to use this Elmer's spray on glue and see if that would be a little less messy than breaking out the Mod Podge. And it so the purple does vanish. I was a little nervous. I'm like, oh no. But the purple dries, and this is actually, it actually worked out really well. I was able to make sure that the entire piece had glue, cloth, and just wiped around it. And it dried really nice and even, barely any wrinkles. So I think I'm going to try this again, or at least maybe try some Mod Podge in a little spray bottle. It did not take long for it to dry at all. So for the next step, I'm going to move on with the roof. I rescued this book from the trash. It is a Junie Jones book, and it's not that old, but since the jacket was gone, the cover was in really rough shape. I think I've had this for a couple years waiting to upcycle it. My daughter does collect the books, so we will be saving the pages, and we're going to make a new cover for them. So we'll be showing that in a video hopefully soon. We want to be able to recover some vintage books that we have that do not have a cover. So that's going to be our sample, and we'll keep it in our collection. All right, so once I took the piece off, I realized that there were some tears right around the center piece, but that's okay. I'm applying a light pink mixture, the color Truffle by Waverly. I did water it down a bit and then wipe it back, and I thought that it gave it a beautiful aged look. I actually have an antique book that looks very similar, but there's some tears in it and some dents, but that's okay. I thought that this birdhouse would look cute with some feet. Doesn't everything just look cute with little feet? So here I am just applying some clear wax, and then I'm going to go over with that same mixture of the Waverly paint and just brush it on and wipe it back. And I will go ahead and link those feet in the description below because I think that they're the perfect size, not only for feet, but little toppers when you're making like cloches or repurposing some jar lids. So I'm just taking a X-Acto knife and cutting around the hole and where we're going to put the perch. So I thought that this old key would make the perfect perch. A touch of the E6000 glue, and then once the key has dried, lay it on its back and apply more E6000 inside the hole so it's secure. And I use E6000 for the little feet. I typed up a Bible verse about birds, which I thought was kind of fitting for this little birdhouse. I wanted to add something right on the bottom and printed this out on rice paper. And what's great about the rice paper and an inkjet printer, or at least mine, I don't have to spray that ink with sealer before applying it with a thin coat of Mod Podge. Even when I used the heavier glue up at the top, I didn't have any problem at all with running. So that cuts down on a lot of time versus printing it out on tissue paper. Sprayed the entire piece with sealer, including the roof, after I get the whole entire piece done. All right, so now to use E6000 and put the roof on. Now I made a major mistake that I want to share with you guys so that way it will save you time and frustration. And I don't know what I was thinking. I applied glue to the whole entire top of the roof, tried to line it up. I should have only glued half of that book cover on at a time. I should have glued half of it and applied the clamps and let it dry for several hours and then gone and done the other half. But lesson learned, I won't do that again. And it came out, it just took way too long. Now here's just a reminder of what the piece looked like before. You can always go ahead and add a title and some images to the cover. I just wanted to leave it plain and simple, so that way maybe someone else can personalize it and add their touch to it. Item number 7 is this embossed metal tile wall hanging. Apply 1 coat of the DIY paint in vintage linen and then another coat of DIY paint, but this time in apothecary. Once it has a chance to dry, I'm going to go over that with DIY white wax, and I'm going to give it a couple hours to really stick on there and dry, and then I'm going to go through and wipe it down with a clean cloth, and we're going to see if we can bring out any of that detail. All right, so here we go. And I apologize, my tripod was on the table with me, so I apologize for all the movement. All right, so that really brought it out, but because the center didn't really have that much texture to it, on the Canva, I found some images of some lavender, and I printed this out on the water slide decal paper, spray it with 2 coats of the acrylic spray sealer, so that way the ink will not run when I go to put these in the water. And I did just use a regular inkjet printer, which I did list a similar one below in the description that is close to mine, because they don't sell mine anymore. You're going to want to cut out as close as you can to the image, so that way you can't see like a definite line when you apply your water. Sand off the wax that was in the center so that this will adhere well. And I'm just using room temperature water. What I'm doing now is just lightly putting some water right where I want the decals to go. This is going to help pull and hold that water seal as I'm laying it on. Now, it does give you a few seconds to be able to play with it and move it around, which is great. You know, want to make sure that it's lined up and in position. What I'm doing now is seeing if that decal is ready to come off of that paper. And if it's not, I just put it back into the water and just wait and see how I just have that top piece there that's going to be stuck on. I'm going to put my hand flat and just gently pull, because you can tear it, so you want to be careful, and just gently pull it off. And again, if it doesn't want to come off, it might just need a little more water. But we did it. Now I'm just going to go through, take a cloth, and you smooth it out to get all of the bubbles out. Now I'm going to hold it close so you guys can see. It's kind of hard to tell, but I'm just smoothing it out. And again, gently so I don't tear it. All right, so after it's sat there for a few minutes and dried up, I'm just stipling over with some of the white wax. I just want to try to make it look like it is all one piece and cover up the outside of the decal. And it worked. All right, here's a reminder what it looked like before. And here it is after. Friends, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that you have a super blessed week. I will see you next Sunday. God bless.